I'm Phil Harris from the Jax Ranger Show. This is the MLR Championship Shield, and you're watching Let Freedom Ring, baby. Woo! Huzzah!
Welcome to Let Freedom Ring. I hope everybody's having a great week out there. As you've started to notice, the days are getting a little bit longer, so we're starting to make that stride, I think, into for winter to be, well, not over, but we're getting there. But my guest this week, Joey Kilmartin. Joey, welcome to the show.
Pleasure, Dan.
Yeah, pleasure to have you. Let's get to know you a little bit. Where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Drake, pretty much. Spent a lot of time in Lowell. I moved to Nashua in about 2019, so I'm currently from Nashua. Liking New Hampshire a lot better than Mass, but
Oh, yeah?
pretty much a Drake upbringing, small town, so we found a lot more fun in Lowell, but, you know, I lived in Malden for a while.
Oh, okay.
That was a fun experience, you know.
Yeah, I was born in Malden.
Oh,
That's
were
where
you?
my mom
All right,
grew
yeah,
up.
it's,
Malden, yeah.
It's rough in all the right ways. It's a good way to put it. But
Nice. Now, so Drake and Lowell, did you play any sports growing up or anything like that?
nothing
or?
crazy, rec baseball, you know what I mean, rec soccer, rec basketball. But once I got to high school, I actually started training to wrestle. I was a sophomore in high school.
Oh, okay.
So I did the whole wrestling team thing freshman year, and I was like, I don't really like getting home at 7.
Yeah.
And I don't like this. It's not. But it was just kind of the path. Like, I knew, ever since I was 10, I wanted to be a wrestler.
Okay.
So I did gymnastics at a young age, so I was like, it's there. I'm sure the holds, but it was, to me, painfully boring.
Yeah.
Just, I've never been one where you can put structure in front of me and have me enjoy it, which is maybe detrimental, but I am who I am.
Yeah.
You know, but, so the whole structured thing, even at a young age, I think even in my wrestling training, it was very old school and not on the fly. I went to class 2 times a week, but, you know, it was definitely a do and fail and get corrected type of way. I was trained by Jason Rumble, so that was his approach to it,
Okay.
which I guess is the Kowalski way.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of how I've lived my life.
Yeah.
But I think we got off the question a little
No,
bit.
no,
I
that's
do that,
okay.
but
No, that's good. That's good stuff. No, we're gonna get into a lot of your wrestling on this too. What are 3 things that everybody should know about you?
you know, you sent me that question today, and I guess one is obviously that I'm a father. It's probably the best part about me. That's the best part of life is having a child. He's 3, and it's an adventure in itself. But
Nice.
I guess second would be never take me too seriously. I always like to keep things lighthearted, and I don't believe in. It's going to sound weird, but I don't believe in being sad and depressed. You got to make the best out of every situation. Everything can be made a joke. And maybe that approach doesn't fall with people the right way who don't understand me, but you have to get my sense of humor to like me. But, you know, everything's positive, and that's how you have to look at life. I try to be a positive person, and I just think that that's a good way to describe me if you had to. But it's a third thing. I don't really know. I don't know one specific thing that would say, you know, I can't give you a third thing if I'm being honest. There would be no third thing I could say to describe me.
That's all
I'm
right.
sure a lot of people will answer that question in your comments, and I'd love to see it, but, you know, and I'm open to hearing it. I'd love to see how people would describe me as the third one, so we'll keep that one open.
Now, I gotta ask this though, because you did say you're living in Nashua now.
Yep.
What and you said since 2019?
Yeah, I moved up here from, me and my ex-wife moved up in 2019. She just was from New Hampshire and wanted to get back. And
Yeah, Southern New Hampshire is
yeah, she was from Plastow, and I grew up with all my friends in Lowell, so I didn't want to be too far from the Drake at Lowell area. So Nashua was kind of just the perfect mix of everything that we all wanted. So
Have you found anything in Nashua that you like, a place or anything that you really enjoy going to?
So I really don't drink anymore, but I would say they're all still online. But during the pandemic, we did me and a good friend of mine, Fred, did a beer show. We had a whole beer channel. I think there's probably 40 to 50 episodes still on YouTube. Craft Beer Cult, cheap plug, check it out. But I would say Nashua does have one of the best breweries in New Hampshire.
Okay.
Spyglass. So anybody that's into good beer, check out Spyglass. I love it up here, though. There's literally one of everything. I've never wanted to go somewhere and felt like I was more than 20 minutes away from it, so it does have that aspect. I always tell people Nashua is awesome because you're 45 minutes from the mountains, 45 minutes from the beach, or 45 minutes from Boston. So whatever you feel like doing that day, it's an hour away at most.
Yeah, no,
And there's 3 totally different options. You get the best in New England.
I've always said too, like, and because I know a lot of people that are, I'm almost 40, but I know people around my age that complain about living in New Hampshire, which is like, okay, well, you can leave.
Yeah.
But honestly, I feel if you don't like, at least Southern New Hampshire, I'm not going to speak for the rest of the state because I don't live there. But if you don't like living in New Hampshire, I feel like you're doing it wrong.
Yeah. I
You
mean,
know?
I understand being in the mountains isn't for everybody. Being up by the lakes isn't for everybody, but there is definitely a town in New Hampshire that fits everybody, whether it be Manchester, Tilton. You can go up to Pittsburgh and be 10 minutes from Canada and talk to nobody if you want to. So it's definitely a state where it checks all the boxes. You just got to find where in the state.
Yeah.
But
No, I agree. And like you said, if you want to, if you want to go to Boston, it's not like that hard to do.
no, I've seen people drive to Boston in 25 minutes from Nashua. Wouldn't recommend it, but we're not far. It's right there.
Now, sticking with the theme of the show, this is the money question we ask everybody. It means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But what does it mean to you to be an American?
It sounds cliche, I guess, but to be free. I guess that's what we're known for. People that come to this country, they come for the freedom. I think a lot of people get lost in everything going on and, the politics of it and all, but we're lucky to have the freedom we do. And there's people that fight for that every day, that give up their freedom to do that. And I think that what they do gets lost in politics, but ultimately it's freedom. That's what being an American is to me, I guess.
Yeah.
Which is funny because you sent me that today. I've never really thought of it, but it was a natural answer almost, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot. We talked about this on the show recently too. A lot of, it is getting to be the political season, right? Like,
I have a voicemail box that proves it.
I you know what? I've gotten better because usually when, even if it's a candidate I might even support, if they text me, I'll troll them and say I'm voting for the other person.
You got to hit the stop because as soon as you troll, they get more.
Yeah.
I noticed that. I used to troll them too, but it just gets worse and worse with the ads and everything.
It's so bad, but I like how you say, because a lot of people go, well, freedom, what does that mean? But I mean, when you think about it, like, you do have, why are we so divided? Well, we have free thought. We can think and say
people
what we
argue
want.
freedom, I pay tolls, you know what I mean? And we're not really free. And, there's a lot of other things you can compare it to.
Yeah.
So, it could be better, it could be worse, but...
We're sitting here with pops on a table, drinking a Dunkin'
We had to
Donuts
ask
tea.
nobody to do this tonight, you know what I mean? We're adults. We move about the country however we want and make our own decisions, and a lot of people don't realize that some people don't have that everyday ability.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree with that, and it's definitely a complicated question, but some we always got to ask a new guest.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Now I want to talk about this because you were, and if I'm not mistaken, I thought you made a post that you were at the New England Pro Wrestling Academy recently.
I was actually.
I don't want to spoil anything.
No, that's all right. No. I mean, it's a day by day thing, I guess. Like I said, I have a 3-year-old, and he's seen me wrestle online now in matches that he's seen, and he's definitely interested in it. And it's something I don't want to be 50 and look at, and why didn't I do it? Why didn't I give it another run? Why did I give up? Because the reasons I gave up, to be blunt, are woman and young. I was very young, like I said, when I started. So I missed a lot of high school things, you know what I mean? A lot of the normal things. And then when you get to be 24, you kind of... Wrestling isn't as cool as it was when you were 17, and you want to go see what else life has to offer, and it fell to the wayside. But I'm almost 30 now, and but yeah, I was at New England Pro Wrestling Academy actually a week ago tonight. They were gracious enough to have me. I've known Chase Del Monte since I was 7 years old.
Okay.
He is
former guest.
He's a great guy. Yeah. Chase is a great guy. He was very welcoming. And honestly, it was such a great place to train. You can tell the detail, and it's no I spent 2.5 hours in there, and there's no question on how they turn out so many great talents in the business. I'll definitely be going back. What comes of it, time will tell.
Yeah.
Ideally, in a perfect world, if I was to say I'm coming back, I'd probably be taking bookings by September.
Okay.
Who knows if I decide to continue down that path. A little older than I was when I was doing it 10 years ago. It definitely hurt. It was a good type of pain, though. But we'll see.
Yeah.
Take it day by day. That's all I can really say on that. I'm sure.
It is a great. I've been there one time.
Yeah.
I went to the fantasy camp.
Fantasy camps are great.
34 because I was like, I just want to see what it's like.
I did a fantasy camp at 12 years old.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They knew I was lying about my age because they've known me.
Yeah.
The people at Chaotic, I grew up going to Chaotic shows. I know one of your questions
we're gonna
was-
get to this, but how old? So because I didn't start going to Chaotic till like 2013.
Yep.
So you must have been going.
10 years before you. 2003, I think, January
Oh, wow.
2003. Chase actually asked me the other night, and I told him, we laughed because I said, the first show I ever went to was Cold Fury 3. And he was like, that's the first show I was ever on. And I'm like, wow, it's really been a minute because Cold Fury 3 was 21 years ago. And did you ever go to the PAV?
Yeah, actually, the last couple of years, like probably from 2013, I think they stopped running there whenever they were closing it.
Yeah, I think they closed it down maybe
16.
2016-ish.
Yeah.
Which was a shame. It was such a great building.
It was cool.
But it was their first show there, and the bartender knew my father. He knew I liked wrestling. Gave him 6 tickets. So my dad grabbed me and a bunch of friends, and the next thing I knew, we were front row at some wrestling show in the back of a bar, and there was way too many people in the building. And we saw John Walters versus Luis Ortiz. I don't know if you ever got to see either of them.
I got to see Walters when he returned, and I saw Ortiz at like the end.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they had like a ladder match type of thing, but there was pinfalls, and I didn't get it. But it was the first time that I really saw people beating themselves in front of me. And I was intrigued right there. A lot of people find independent wrestling later, but I actually preferred going to the independent shows as going to WWE. Yeah. I'd go to WWE to see the Chaotic guys get their dark match. But, yeah, I grew up around independent wrestling in a nutshell. I went to the Chaotic shows since I was 6 or 7 at that point. But
yeah, I wish I found it, but then the social media kept progressing.
Yeah.
That's how I stumbled upon any of it.
Oh, when I was going, they didn't even have a website at that point, I think.
Yeah.
They updated their website maybe twice a year. There was 300 people that would show up to that PAV month in and month out, and they were able to tell a story through those 300 people. And to this day, some of those people still go to the shows. It's crazy the following that they've created through New England.
No, it's really, and I gotta get back. I haven't been to Chaotic in maybe almost 2 years, 3 years, but
that's actually what brought me to Nepwa. I had stopped by to see a friend at a Chaotic show recently. And it's really just like a small house show. There's production. There's, you know what I mean? How many times have you gone to a show and they set up some chairs, threw up a ring, and rented the VFW hall? You know what I mean?
And they do packages. Like Sky Slade was on the show talking about how like they started being like, we should make video packages.
Yeah.
And that's such a great. They've always had since I've been going.
Yeah.
But just to think, because I remember when like Lobster Man would have shows in Nashville, and I only went to a handful. There was no video packages.
Yeah. No, I've never been to a Lobster Man show. I've heard some very unique things about the law. I don't know if you ever got to see the Kevin Nashua's or Scott Hollis's that I've heard about.
Twice to Nashville High, and those were Butch
Yep.
Hobson was the referee and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And that was the only things I'd ever seen. But seeing those back again, this is like 2001, 2002, to where when I went to my first Chaotic show in 2013, it was
night and day.
Yeah.
You feel like you're going to a WWE show when you go
Yeah.
to Chaotic. It's kind of like going to an NXT show.
Yeah.
If you went to one of the NXT house shows in Florida, I'm sure it's very comparable to a Chaotic show.
Yeah, I would say so.
But anyway, I think you have a list of questions.
Yeah. Well, we kind of know how you got
scrambling.
into pro wrestling, and you went by the name Justin Ryker. It's an interesting way how you got in because you were just around independent.
Yeah, so the way I basically got into the ring and not into wrestling was somebody had been going to Chaotic shows, and he had kind of told me at intermission one night, like, I'm going to run a show. And you hear people say crazy things all the time, and then he told me like a date and a place and a location. Then he gave me his phone number, and I was like 15. So I was like, I don't know. I'm going to call this guy. Why not? I'm 15. I have nothing better to do on a Tuesday night. He talked to me for like 3 hours. He was running a show. He had rented out. You can hear me talk about this on Leo's podcast. We've gone over this story. He rented out the Brewery Exchange in Lowell.
Okay.
I don't know if you're ever familiar with that place. It was an old bar. I don't even think
Near
it's
the
there anymore.
near the ball field.
Right near the Lasha Park.
I've
Yep.
been there.
He rented out the top floor of that. It went terrible. He drew like 16 people.
Oh man.
But through that, I had met Jason Rumble, who told me, I have this ring. It's up in this place in Everett. Come by sometime. I said, what do you mean by that? He goes, I do TV tapings, and I'm thinking about training people type of thing. He's running classes. So I go up to his next TV taping, and it was, God, I love the guy, but it was the most carny thing I've seen in my life. Because I went up, I said, thanks for inviting me. If you need anything, let me know. And he turned and he said, well, kid, you ever ran a camera? I said, no. He said, well, tonight you're running a camera. And he gave me the roaming cam, and I filmed his TV taping. And I was 16, and I thought to myself, this man has no plan if he didn't even have a cameraman for his TV taping. And I don't know if I've ever said that to him, so he's probably laughing hearing this.
Yeah.
But that was my thought when he handed me the camera. And then, we filmed the show and hung out after, and he asked me if I'd ever thought about wrestling, and I said, yeah, why not? You know what I mean? My dad had passed away, and that was our bond at that point. So, well, you should do it for your father, and why don't you come up Tuesday, and I'll throw you around the ring. And I think Bare Knuckle Burley, I don't know if you're familiar with him.
I heard the name. I can't put a face on it.
Yeah, he was an old bell-time guy, wrestled a lot for Atlantic Pro Wrestling.
Okay.
He had a good run as the tag team champion there. He was training with Jay at the time. So I said, I don't have a car. I'm like 16. I don't even have a license. And he said, well, Barry will pick you up Saturday morning. He trains with me every Saturday morning. And he'll drive you up to my ring. And I started training. And then after a few months, we would meet once or twice a week. He would show me the basics of wrestling. And then I started going to shows with him. And then basically one day I wrestled him on a show. And then the next thing I knew, I was available for bookings. And I was traveling as a professional wrestler and going to school 5 days a week.
Oh, wow.
I would have to tell my principal, hey, I'm doing this show in New Jersey. Can I leave at noon on a Friday? And he happened to see me wrestling on public access one day. So he was like, you're really like doing it. And I was like, yeah, you saw me on public access. So it's like, I'm not doing it. Yeah, no offense to public access, but this was 2011. So he's like, so he pulled me into his office. He's like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm traveling and learning this wrestling thing. And he's like, well, what is it? Is it fake? And I was like, no, I'm really it's athletic. I'm doing something productive. He was like, all right, I'd rather, so he rearranged my schedule. I had gym, study hall, and lunch as my last 3. So I could just bang out right after, right before gym. He saw me at the gym every week. So he knew I didn't need the PA aspect of high school.
Yeah.
So that was how I started wrestling. And then, like I said, by about 23, 24, I was done with this. Then started to get back into it before the pandemic. Then the pandemic hit. My ex-wife was pregnant at the time. So pretty much going to put on spandex and climb into a wrestling ring in front of 40 people wasn't the best choice when you have a pregnant wife at home and there's a world pandemic. And now it's a little different. I'm 30. Like I said, I have the time. I might as well try it again.
Now, how did you come up with the name Justin Ryker?
Because it sounds like a pro wrestling name.
Okay.
It sounds like we were just...
Did you come up with it? Or
I had wrestled under the name Joey Rage.
Okay.
And that was Jason's name when he started out. Before he was Jason Rumble, he was Jason Rage. Then, I don't know if you know the story of Tony Rumble.
I do, yeah.
Promoted
I
back
wasn't
in the
around.
day.
Yeah.
He gave Jay his name. Jay wanted me to be Jason Rage to eventually take over the next name, I guess, maybe.
Yeah.
But we kind of got into an argument. It was 100% my fault being 19. You know what I mean? And I pretty much said, this is a stupid name. I sound like a backyarder. I don't like it. And then his friend was taking over the Belltime Club at the time. And he was running shows, so I was wrestling for him. I said, I don't want to use this name anymore. And he said, well, then come up with a different name. I sat there for 10 minutes. This sounds too much like that. What if we change this? Then my friend had a child named Ryker. I said, I like the name Ryker. which actually is my son's name now.
Oh, okay.
It's Ryker.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm a big fan of the name.
Yeah, yeah. No, I like that. I do like the name.
So yeah, there's no meaning behind it. It has more meaning now that I have a son named Ryker.
Yeah.
I'm sure when he comes to shows, if I wrestle again, he'll think that's cool. But yeah, I've just always liked the name. And then we just needed something that sounded cool in front of Justin. In front of Ryker. Justin fell into play. I hate the name Joe.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely hate the name Joe. It's so basic and generic. And
Yep.
love my parents, but you really put no effort into that, huh, guys? But hey.
I mean, I grew up in the 80s. There's 100 Dans.
Yeah, no, you have the
know?
same problem. I'm sure some people are like, you're so negative about it. I'm like, I don't know. I remember being in school and they'd be like taking attendance for the first time and they'd be like, Joe, 4 kids would raise their hand. And,
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of common names.
Yeah,
you know?
that's why when I found out I was having a boy, I was like, his name's Ryker. And she was like, I'm not even going to argue. Like, can I just ask why? And I was like, 'cause how many do you know?
Yeah.
And she was like, I literally know one because I met him through you. And I was like, and that's why I like the name because I heard it through him.
No, that is a good name, and it's always interesting to how wrestlers come up with some of the names, and usually it's not like a crazy story.
No,
you know?
it literally was just I don't like what I'm using. I was mad at where I came from because I was young and stupid. Sat down, said I want it to be something different. All right, well, what's something different? Well, I didn't even think that far. You know what I mean? Give me 20 minutes.
No, that's good. Now I gotta ask this because we connected on Facebook about this, and I forget what kind of. Dan Murati, who unfortunately passed away. This was my first time going to an independent show as Millennium Wrestling Federation. Yep. I think this is like 2013. I stumbled upon something. I've never been a big Twitter guy.
Yep.
But I think I was on Twitter.
He did a great job promoting. I bet you weren't even on Twitter. You probably heard about it at a house show. Because what Dan used to do
I didn't go to a lot. I think it might have been YouTube, too.
Maybe, he had the Boston Pro Wrestling channel, too. Definitely could have been YouTube. I found out about MWF before I ever wrestled for them as a kid because I would go to the house shows or the tapings at the Garden, and Dan and everybody that worked for Dan would hand you a flyer walking out of that building. And that's how you promoted in 2005, 2006, 2007. I met Matt Hardy that way, you know what I mean? Because somebody gave me a flyer outside of the Garden, That's how I went to all the independent shows that weren't chaotic. Mm-hmm. Somebody gave me a flyer. Or I read it in the back of the Boston Globe. It was really the only way you found out about independent wrestling.
That's crazy, even in 2005. It was kind of like that.
And I was 10 years old. You know what I mean? I got to find wrestling. There's no chaotic show this weekend. I want to see wrestling. I was just addicted to it. And that's how I found Dan. But back to what you're asking, it's funny because I do want to point out, when you reached out to the show, I read our previous messages, and you were like, hey, were you on this show?
And I forget what sparked me to ask that.
Yeah, no, I was glad you did. It was So I had no business being on shows like that, if I'm being completely honest.
So this is March 2013 in, what that place is a great
the Melrose
venue.
Memorial Hall.
Great venue that never sells out.
Yeah, well, I don't think you could sell it out.
Yeah.
Physically, there just seems to be an endless array of seats.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But, Dan ran some great shows, man. He really did. I don't want to say I had no business to put myself down, but, the names that were on that show, it would be me, Bobby Lashley. You know what I mean? The Iron Sheik. Or, it's I'd be sitting in the locker room, with Jay, you know what I mean? There's a few local guys, but
Tommaso Ciampa was there that night.
Yeah, we would just, I'm looking around, how did I do that? And it was just because I liked Dan. And me and Dan got along. And actually, Rich Swann is responsible, not to drop a name, but for me ever getting my first MWF booking.
Really?
We were hanging out one night before the show. Me, Dan, and Rich Swann, we were driving somewhere. And Swann goes, who are you wrestling tomorrow? I don't know, I'll be there. He goes, are you not booked? And I went, I'm not booked. And then Swann was, I'm not wrestling if he's not booked. And Dan was like, all right, well, I guess you can wrestle Makua.
Okay.
And I was like, all right, I'm wrestling for the MWF tomorrow. What? Why? I was just there to, you know what I mean, when you're young in the business? Because originally he had me and I had helped out. Dan had led to some cool things. This is a dumb story that I'll just drop the name, but Iron Sheik was awesome. He came in for Dan a few times, and I had met him at a Dan show. I wasn't booked, went and did security, but helped out with a lot of the things that Sheik needed. Then somebody else brought Sheik into a show I think ICW ran in Boston, And Iron Sheik walks up to me in the locker room. And, hey, Bubba, good to see you. How you doing tonight? And gives me a big hug. And everybody's looking at me like, why did that happen? And I'm like, he's a good guy. You know what I mean? Like, it was on Dan's show.
Yeah.
But it was just Dan always had that opportunity to. He would spend the money to put on a good show, and it was a great way to make connections. You know what I mean? As long as you weren't shy, which I've never been shy. You know what I mean? If Bob Hawley's 10 feet to my left tying shoes, you know what I mean? I'm going to ask him if he thinks the weather sucks.
Yeah.
Why not? You know what I mean? Like,
now, how the Rich Swann thing? You were on a show that, like, because I don't really know much about Rich Swann's career other than WWE and TNA.
He was booked for MWF. Dan called me and knew I lived in Malden. Said, "Can you go pick this guy up from the airport?"
Okay.
And I just was at that point in my career where, you know, you're dumb and you'll do anything the promoter says to get a booking. So I was trying to get a booking, and sure, I'll go pick Rich Swann up. Like, I have nothing to do. The airport's 20 minutes away. Like, why not meet this guy who's got a buzz? And you know what I mean? It's just a connection to be made. You asked what the best advice I could give a pro wrestler would be earlier, and it's definitely make the connections. And the only other thing I can say to that is wrestling is never going to give you more than you put into it. It will give you less for sure, and you have to be okay with that. But it's never going to give you more than you give it. So be willing to give it what you want out of it, or else just don't try.
Yeah. No, that's good. Now I got asked on that show too because this is the first time I got to ask a wrestler a question, right? So I'm at the show and Jimmy Snuka's in the ring, and first they said you had to pay to like ask him a question, but then they just changed it to like whoever wants to ask
because nobody was going to pay to do that.
Yeah,
and they were like, somebody needs to ask questions.
So
it sounds like an MWF thing.
I got up there and Snuka, people were asking really easy questions. Hey, what kind of marital, like not the guy to ask about marriage, obviously.
Don't kill her.
Yeah, but so I got up and I was like, and I was a little nervous. And my brother, I'm just gonna ask him. I don't know. And I just said, is there anybody in the business that you didn't like working with? And he goes, brother. And he got like, not like he was gonna like, I didn't know. He told me he was gonna splash me from the top rope. And then he said, I'm not here to answer shoot questions. So I don't know why anybody would have paid for that in the first place.
Yeah, wait a minute. I thought that's exactly what we were here for.
And he basically told me I could buy his book. And I'm like, okay.
Thank you. And this has been painfully awkward.
And no diss to Jimmy. I was never a big. He was like before my time, really. But did you get to meet him? I
never met Snuka. I met a lot of cool people through MWF, but never Snuka. I did even go into the shows as a kid. I have an awkward MWF moment Q&A question. So I was like 11, and I went and asked the Motor City Machine Guns if they would leave for WWE. And they're sitting there with the TNA tag titles. And Shelly was like, bring them in the ring. And he patted me down.
Yeah.
Like I was wearing a mic. So I'm like, they were always fun and interesting. You know what I mean? So they did exist for a reason. Maybe Snuka just wasn't the best guy for them.
Yeah. It was really, I didn't think it was just bizarre.
Yeah.
And I'm just like looking around like, what is going on here? But now it's like the internet's changed so much that like, wrestlers are answering ridiculous questions that would never have been answered in the 90s or even the early
there
2000s.
is no fourth wall.
Yeah.
I guess would be and it's kind of what you make out of that. Like, what can you make the whole, like AEW was doing the Swerve Strickland thing where he went into his house and it's like, am I really supposed to believe that?
Yeah.
But it's like, I do still like then people were like, oh, they had a violent match. And I'm like, well, yeah, you want a blood feud.
Yeah.
And then you want a blood feud match, but you're mad when he's going in to pick up the kid's baby out of his crib. Like,
yeah.
What do you want?
Like, see, I don't have, obviously, it's not real. So a lot of those angles are like, okay, well, it gets them here, whatever. But I got to say, like, the answers that they're giving on the internet on, like, regular interviews, if someone does Chris Van Vliet, whatever his name is, it's like they're answering straight up questions that I don't feel would have been answered until after your career now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's no, like I said, there's no fourth wall or no effort. And that's kind of what I don't like about it, because storytelling is my favorite part of wrestling. So it's like, if you have no good story, like, yeah, you can have, somebody sent me the Will Ospreay-Alexander match, I think, from TNA. And I was like, cool, what's the premise? And he was like, they wrestled before once.
Yeah.
And I went, okay. And he goes, it was really good. And I went, yeah, but, like, that's not a story. Like, having a good match is not a story. That's an acceptable story nowadays.
I think, like, to me, like, that is really a lot of, now, different people like different things, right?
Yeah.
If you're, and again, people think I'm, like, anti-AEW. I'm not. I want it to succeed, obviously.
I think all wrestling is good. I think having more options is better, but I think that they do have their flaws. I will say this might get me a little heat, but people need to realize Tony Khan's autistic. You have an autistic man with a multi-million-dollar company playing Booker. Just be grateful he's putting that money into professional wrestling.
Yeah.
That's what people need to stop crying about. Is he going to fail? Yeah, he's basically a kid playing with dad's paycheck.
Yeah,
to run this action figure company. And that's fine. He needs to get the right people in charge. He needs to put the money in the right place. But we're 5 years into it. Let the guy fail.
Yeah.
He's got enough money to fail.
And he might not. He might just keep pumping into it. But I gotta say that, you know, some people just like matches. I like a story behind it, and that's just the way that it is. But that doesn't mean, like, if you're gonna get me to order the pay-per-view, though, I'm probably gonna either have nothing better to do if I'm gonna order it.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking for something to do, or there was a really good story that I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, like the Devil thing was cool, but the payoff was too predictable in my opinion.
Very disappointing.
Yeah, it was not even disappointing. It just was the perfect point to do something better.
Even if that was the original idea, I would have rewrote it because it took so long, and now it's like, and then they had Adam Cole come out before the match, and I was like, okay, so it's him, and then it just, like, you couldn't really focus on the match.
I didn't even
anymore.
watch it, to be honest. They lost me with the Continental Class. It needs a good mix of story and good wrestling.
Well, if you listen to his press conference after, he said that was a great success, was how successful the Continental Classic was.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. He's not,
it's hard to watch
He's
those.
basically a child playing Booker. Everything's good, and I like it. Look at the glass half full attitude of it.
Yeah.
But don't tweet. I mean, yeah, somebody got to get him off Twitter.
Yeah.
Who cares? Let the guy have. We had a president tweeting worse things. All right, if you're mad at, just let the guy have his Twitter. You don't have to read it if you don't like it. If you don't like the show, don't watch it. But like the AEW Collision match, AEW Collision up against the Rumble, I watched it like 2 days later. Great show.
Yeah.
People need to appreciate that we have a good another wrestling alternative. Stop begging for TNA to go out of business.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Root for them. Just everything. The more, the better. I mean,
absolutely.
Being saturated isn't good, but there being 3 top companies, that's great for wrestlers, for fans, for everybody. If you don't like one show that weekend, you buy another. There's no, oh, this is bad. Yeah, it could be better. Who cares how many fans are in the audience?
Yeah, it's not
go
your
be
money.
A fan in the audience.
It's not your.
Stop crying about it on the internet and go fill a seat.
Well, that's the big thing. It's like, it's not my money. It's Tony's money. So whatever he does with it.
I went to AEW at Mohegan Sun. You know what my ticket was? It was $8 on StubHub before. If you can't afford $8 to go see the local wrestling show, but you're going to sit there and complain about it on Twitter,
yeah, Twitter's.
You're really not a wrestling fan. You're just miserable.
Yeah, it's a cesspool. But I also think that online banter is almost just not even real. You know what I mean?
No, it's not.
It's not real. It's just banter.
I mean, I'm sure for the guys at a top level, it's hard to read, but you got to understand that people are just miserable on the internet, and nobody's.
Yeah, it's a free country. They're gonna say whatever they want. They have a platform, and it really doesn't matter because But that's maybe why Tony answers questions. Well, he also goes on his Twitter raid.
Yeah.
But I don't even know what he's saying is hyperbole and what's not.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
He's just a young guy with a ton of money that loves wrestling, having fun.
Yeah.
You know, he's as much of a mark as most of the people watching. Yeah. The difference between you and Tony Khan is his dad owns a football team.
Yeah.
His dad owns a soccer team. His dad said to him, "You want your inheritance? Fine, blow it in front of me."
Yeah.
That's the only difference between 90% of internet wrestling fans and Tony Khan.
Yeah, I wish he would, because again, I didn't like the way he answered the question about, is he going to add to his creative team or anything? And he's like, "Whoa, why would I do that?" And he's like, "Well, I do listen to people, but I think you're right.
He needs structure. If you're going to have 4 to 5 hours of live television every week, you need a little better structure.
But like you said, it's his thing, and he just wants to do it the way he wants, and whatever, I don't know. But I do want to get to the fan questions.
Right.
From David Ratty. Joey, how did you discover independent wrestling, and who are some of your favorites to watch? We kind of answered the how did you discover it, but who are your favorites?
that list could go on and on. I loved, the early days of Chaotic had, I want to say, I wasn't there for like the Aaron Stevens. I was right after for the Brian Blacks, the John Walters, the Arch Kincaids, obviously Todd Hansen, Ivar, whatever he goes by now. He's always been one of my favorites. To watch just overall, I do like a lot of the deathmatch guys. I'm just weird, and I would never do it, but I do enjoy the art of death matches. So I like some of the Japanese deathmatch guys. If I'm going to watch wrestling, if I was just to watch a random match, I'd like an old school Amazing Red match, AJ Styles.
Okay, yeah.
Obviously Jason Rumble, that's why he trained me. I don't know. A lot of the old school independent guys. Alex Shelley, like some weird names you wouldn't think of. You know what I mean? I like the... to this day, I wouldn't miss an Alec Price match. He's definitely the next thing to blow up in New England, and he's such a good, humble kid that I can't wait to see him have that success. But over the past 20 years, that's probably just a span of... If I have to watch a wrestling match now, it's usually an Ivar or Alec match.
Okay.
Or some death match. I do enjoy most everything GCW puts out.
Okay.
There's a good collection and variety through GCW. But, yeah, that's just everything I've... 20 years of wrestling, that's who I probably comes to mind first, I guess.
All right. And I know this is kind of a joke question, but for Dave Fournier, have you ever interest in Micro Championship Wrestling booking you? Now, I just want to say, like, I guess they do wrestle locally.
There's a ton of different groups out there doing the I don't want to use the M word.
I'll just say, Micro Championship Wrestling.
Yeah, they're doing the midget wrestling, and that's fine. It's a great gimmick for a bar. I have no qualms with it, and anybody who knows me knows that if anybody ever wants to pay me to entertain them, I will gladly wrestle with midgets. I have never said no to be paid to entertain somebody.
What do they like? I wonder how they train like any other wrestler.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I am at. I've never even been to a show.
Yeah, I've never.
I know Robbie Arujo, who's wrestles for them. He does. I'm sure it's like any other thing.
Yeah.
Because if you look, there's a lot out there. So I'm sure there's the good ones and the bad ones. I've seen some reviews of some really terrible ones, and I've seen reviews of good ones. I think it's just looking at what midget promotion you're bringing into your bar. There's some really trashy looking ones. I've thought about going, but I'm not spending $40 to go see
people I don't know.
Like, if it was like a $10 thing at the local bar, I think it would be a lot cooler. But I've actually looked up tickets, and it's like $40 to go to one of those shows, and I'm like... Yeah. I don't know. I'm sure there's a market for it, and if they were actually interested in me, because I am only 5'4".
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not tall. I've done a midget show where I was the world's tallest midget, and I got to beat up like 5 other midgets, and they paid me. So I would never say no to that again. You know what I mean? But I don't know. I think I'm just short enough to not be considered a credible good wrestler, but too tall to be a midget wrestler.
Yeah, it's a very
unmarketable height.
And I don't know if they use I don't know what and I don't know if they use that word anymore. I know they did when I was
apparently it's offensive.
I don't know.
But I mean,
the
hate can fall on me. The views and opinions do not reflect Dan or the shows.
But I have seen the advertisements. It is not nothing that I've it's not something I would go to. Just me.
Like I said, I would go. I would never be against going. I'm always open-minded to anything.
Yeah.
But not spending $40 to go to it. You know what I mean?
Now, I got to ask this because it's another cool thing that you do. You've worked with Fright Kingdom and C-Mac, who Chris McCormick has been on the show. How'd you get into haunting?
I kind of just always went to haunted houses. I loved haunted houses growing up. And... just kind of decided I was driving by Fright Kingdom one day, and I'd go in and ask if they were hiring. And Tim was there, said yes, start this date, and let me know what days you can work. So I texted him all the days I could work, and I did most days last year, and this following October, I think I only got like 7 nights in total at best. Just a lot more going on this year, but it's fun. It's definitely... I like seeing the behind the scenes of anything, so it's cool to see. It's a lot that goes into it. They have an incredible team at Fright Kingdom, and I don't just say that because I work there. I I could have gone to any haunted house I wanted to and applied. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? I'm sure it would have. I went there because they were one of my favorites growing up. They're also indoors, which is great because on the nights that it rains, it feels like all of New England comes to
Oh, yeah.
Frank Kingdom.
They don't have to, because I'd assume Canby Lake probably cancels.
Yeah, a
right?
lot of people cancel, and
Yeah.
it works out good because not only do the customers come, we get a lot of the scarers. So it's more of an experience. So they have a great production and a great thing going on at Frank Kingdom. If anybody's never been to a haunted house, or they even do something for kids during the Halloween season. They do a lot of off-season stuff.
Yeah, they do the Krampus and all that.
Yeah, they do like a halfway to Halloween, which, they have that whole building year-round. They might as well put it to use. But
Now, what's it like? I know that C-Mac, he's more the behind-the-scenes stuff. Do you get to do any work with him?
I mean, he's always the one that I usually report to as soon as I get there.
Okay.
He's you can tell he's very well at organizing it. He loves what he does. He's got a lot of high energy going into it. And I think it's something too, you don't just do it as a job, you do it because you love it. And you can tell he does enjoy everything he does there. And that makes it easy to work for him.
Yeah. No, great guy. I played softball with him for years.
Okay. I've only known him through Frank Kingdom, but he does seem like a really good guy.
And you
Very
never,
good
if you
energy.
go to a Patriots game, you never know when you're going to run into him because he's usually there.
Yep.
I want to get some top fives. One right now, if you have to pick, now I know it's completely subjective. Like, I hate when people get, this is the best wrestler in the world. Subjective answer, but if you had to pick who you think are the top 5 wrestlers in the world right now, who would you say? It doesn't have to
My
be
opinion or like what the rating would
be. And again,
be?
it doesn't, it's your opinion. So I'm not just saying like, they have 5-star classics or however you want to look at it, or
So,
they're a draw or.
My current top 5 active would be Mike Bailey.
Okay. Where's he? Is that a GCW?
I think he's in Impact,
Okay.
if I'm correct. I mean, I see him mostly in GCW matches. And just type in Mike Bailey on YouTube, you know what I mean? Alec, obviously, I think is one of the top wrestlers in the country right now. You can't not say Roman Reigns.
Sure.
You know what I mean? He's making the most money, so that obviously counts for something. In-ring wise, on a national level, probably, obviously, Daniel Bryan to this day, and AJ Styles.
Okay. AJ's looking great right now.
Yeah,
He
he's
really is.
looking good, especially getting up there in age. A lot of people worried that he would slow down, but I think he's so just crisp and great in the ring that he'll have a Bryan Danielson-esque career where he's just going to be on top till the end.
Yeah. No, he looks phenomenal. No pun intended.
No pun intended, but yeah, there's a reason he went with that, probably.
Yeah. Who are your top 5 favorites of all time?
Ooh. Rey Mysterio.
Okay.
Obviously being the same exact height as me, he's definitely inspirational. Because I personally hate small wrestlers, as funny as that's going to sound to people. Like, if I watch a Marco Stunt match, I'm like,
Yeah, I remember him.
there's no believability, you know what I mean? Like, no muscle, no, like, so I think that he made it plausible for little guys to wrestle. Amazing Red, probably. I feel like these are all going to be small guys. I don't know. I couldn't give you 3 more off the top of my head.
Okay.
Paul London, probably.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, definitely some interesting matches. He always stood out to me young on TV. Pretty much anybody that was on SmackDown in 2003.
Okay.
It's like those were my favorite wrestlers.
All right.
That
all
whole
right.
crop of the Randy Orton, John Cena when they came in,
Brock.
Batista, Brock. That was
03 was,
my prime in
it was a
wrestling.
big year for Chris Benoit and Kurt Angle, too.
Who?
With it. Yeah.
Never heard of them.
Well, we can say it on this show. We're not going to get into, top 5 female wrestlers?
Oh God, Sasha Banks,
Okay.
Alexa Bliss. I don't know. I don't want to say I don't like women's wrestling. I guess Charlotte's obviously up there.
Sure. Yeah.
2 more. Did we cancel the Fabulous Moolah?
I don't know what I don't
Mae
know.
Young Mae Young and that other one that they won't talk
I
about.
know there was a lot of
I think
stuff that
that-
came out, but a lot of it's tough for those when someone's deceased and
Yeah, it's hard because regardless of what's behind it, she pioneered women's wrestling.
Yeah.
So you have to put Mae Young and Fabulous Moolah up there.
Sure. And they came back and had their run.
Yeah,
in
but
the late 90s.
even I'll never. I always love showing people the power bomb off the stage.
Yeah.
It's like, you can get around a lot of things in wrestling, but she took that bump. She took that.
I think she told him before, don't go easy
Yeah,
on me.
like, well, I'm jumping off a stage. Like, there's not a lot of padding.
No.
If you watch that bump, they just use the tables and Bubba's thighs to protect her. And
I remember watching that, because I was probably like 15 when that
did you watch it
happened.
live? I didn't get to see it live.
And I remember thinking to myself, going, "Oh, she just doesn't care anymore." Like,
Yeah, that's exactly what
she
it is.
doesn't care
That's
what
a woman
happens.
who's like, I'm on my way out. Let's
Yeah,
make it
I just don't
entertaining.
care.
Yeah, like let's do what we can for the people.
Yeah.
And I respect that.
Yeah, that was definitely, again, obviously I was way too young to watch them in their prime, but when they came back, they knew how to entertain.
Oh, they were something.
All right, I want to get into my favorite subject or favorite segment of the show, buy or sell. I'm going to give you something, you tell me if you're buying it or selling it. So,
Okay.
Not literally buying it, you know what I mean, like whether you'd keep it. Now, I just want to address this. In no way do the views of Let Freedom Ring feel any particular way on Tony Khan. Like we were saying in the show,
good.
that
It's
is all
me.
Joey's opinion.
You can all put it on me.
But would you buy or sell Tony Khan?
As a person, like, would I get rid of him?
Would you want him?
Do I have to get rid of AEW if he goes away?
No. I was just saying, if you were having a company, would you bring him in, buy or
Oh,
sell?
God, no.
Yeah.
No. He'd be a great fan. I'd love to have him. Put a ton of money into it. But would I employ him to make decisions? Most definitely not.
No, and I don't think he can. Yeah, that's really tough.
I think there's a spot for him. He could probably book arenas or something. I'm sure he's good at something. He owns a NFL team and a soccer team on the other side of the pond.
Do you think, though, because a lot of people say 2021 was really hot for them around that time. I'm just going to throw out 2021. He's had some ups. Do you think any of that stuff he can get back, or do you think it's just
I don't think any
one
of the
trick?
ups are him. If you look, they
Yeah.
sold out their next arena or their next pay-per-view. Why'd they sell that arena out? Sting's last match.
Sure.
I could put on Sting's last match and sell out Greensboro Auditorium if I was willing to put the money up for it. You know what I mean? Tony Khan proved that. He put no name behind, not Tony Khan, Conrad Thompson.
Yeah.
He proved that when he put no real promotion behind. He said, we're just going to have Ric Flair's last match, put on a great pay-per-view. You know what I mean? So I don't think that... I think he has a purpose. I'm sure you can find a good job for him, but he's not on the booking
It wouldn't
team
be
of
like,
my
hey,
company.
we got to have him.
Yeah,
Would you rather Vince Russo or Tony Khan?
Tony Khan.
Okay.
Vince Russo, in my personal opinion,
Yeah.
is the biggest cancer to have ever happened to wrestling.
Yeah.
It would have been probably night and day better. Granted, he ushered in the Attitude Era. They should have ushered him out while ushering that in.
There's a lot
But
of not great stuff from the Attitude Era.
Terrible.
Yeah.
I would say that to him. You can say, anybody feel free to send this to him. He can just, him and Ryback, if they never touch the business again, I think would be great.
Yeah, Ryback says a lot of weird things.
Yeah.
But, I agree with what Triple H said in the presser the other day, where he's like, there was a lot, everybody makes the Attitude Era was great, but they make it on this, like, it's not as great as it's remembered. Like,
Yeah, it's not- it
Middle part
wasn't-
of the shows were not
They're
great.
pretty bad if you go watch like a Raw
not-
from '97.
Not really watchable.
It's not fantastic.
No. Yeah, so. You a football guy?
Not a big one.
Okay. Would you buy or sell Brock Purdy? Would you have any take on that?
Probably wouldn't be the guy to
Okay.
ask.
What do you think of the halftime show this year, though? Usher.
Is it Usher?
It is Usher. Would you buy or sell that?
I could sell that.
Okay.
We could do better than Usher.
Really?
Yeah, I think we
Okay.
could do better than Usher.
All right. Fair enough. Usher's one of my all-time favorites.
Really?
So,
Now I feel like a
I'm
jerk.
the Usher Bowl, I'm all in on that.
Something's got to be good about this game.
Yeah, I'm not excited for the 49ers and Chiefs. Just seen that 4 years
I
ago.
might not even watch it.
Yeah, it's like an American tradition, right?
Well, it's
You know,
like I don't drink, so it's
Yeah.
like I don't want to sit.
neither do I. So
So I'm not gonna. You know what I mean? What am I
Yeah.
gonna do? I don't want to. I have no desire to watch it this year.
Yeah,
Once
fair.
the Bills are out, whatever happened happened. I was really pulling for the Bills this year.
Yeah, well, it's someone that's been
Apparently, the Bills aren't pulling for the Bills, but
No. What about Jade Cargill?
oh, she's definitely got a future in the business. We can keep her.
Yeah. I thought she was. We do like a pick'em league where we try to pick the mat, like keep track of it from WrestleMania to SummerSlam to WrestleMania, and I picked her to win the Rumble because I need serious points.
Okay.
So if she would have won, I could have really had a swing
I
there.
could have seen her winning, and I actually probably would have liked taking it over Bayley.
Yeah, I thought Bayley was too predictable.
I didn't think Bayley was predictable. I also don't watch the product. I did watch the Rumble.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I've known Bayley since I watched the product. So it's like half the Women's Rumble, I went, I don't know who that is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I have no, like, I'd look at people like, do you know who that is? And they'd be like, okay, I'm just an idiot. Like, I really just.
Yeah, no.
It was the first time I watched a Rumble, too, where I genuinely didn't know what most of them were.
There was a few in there. There was a newer tag team. Because I watched Raw, but I watched like 2 hours of it because I work for the first hour of Raw, so I missed some of that. I don't watch NXT, and I don't really get to watch SmackDown that often. You know what I mean? Like, I watch wrestling when I have a chance to watch it.
See, like, I'm going to NXT Tuesday.
Oh, nice.
No idea what's going on.
Is it in Florida?
Yeah, I'm going down to Florida next week.
Oh, that's cool.
But, like, I have no idea what's going on. I'm just going to a wrestling show because it's live wrestling.
Yeah.
I've never seen it.
Well, you know what keeps me actually into everything is social media.
Yeah, I can jump right back in and watch an episode of Raw and fill in the blanks.
Like, I know Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams are really close to splitting on each other without watching the show.
Okay.
I'd have to assume.
See, I thought they were in, like, the Dusty Classic.
They are, but someone attacked Trick Williams. It's been going on, I believe, for months, and there's been no payoff.
Obviously Carmelo.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if that will be the... Because that's a good... I think
it's a good way to turn Carmelo heel before going up to the main roster.
And I think that's how you finally end the story between them.
Yep.
You know, speaking of the story, Cody Rhodes' story. Are you buying or selling this whole finish the story?
I love it. I think it's the only good thing in WWE right now. Is my biggest problem with WWE for a long time was no long-term storytelling. And to actually have something that means something for 2 years straight, I think is awesome. I was hyped when he lost. Like, when I didn't watch it, but when I read online, like, I saw the picture, I'm just sitting there, and I was like, that's great. If I had known he was going to lose, I probably would have watched it. Granted, I watched it back. It could have been better the way it was very cheap for a WrestleMania main event. But I love the story. I hope he does, finish it. I think that, I don't know, somebody said he might face Seth Rollins, was what I thought.
I think they want to milk the decision a little bit.
Because now they don't have Punk, which was clearly going to be Punk versus Rollins.
I think, now again, I don't know. This is speculation. The plan was always to have... Usually they decide. Now they have two champions.
Yeah,
because they haven't.
Somebody's going to decide.
They haven't had two champions like this in a while.
But the Rumble ended with him like clearly being.
It's clear, but then so what they did was Rollins came out and stated his case why I should pick him, and then Cody said I have to think about it.
Okay.
So I don't think they're reshuffling.
Sounds like a bad breakup.
Yeah, I don't think it's a reshuffle. I think they're saying we want to milk the decision.
They're trying to figure out who they actually want to probably face.
Yeah, because honestly, if they don't do Romans and Cody, there's going to be a mutiny.
Yeah, you think so?
There's going to be a mutiny. Yeah, that's the hottest
What if they
thing.
could do Roman and The Rock? And then Seth and Cody, because I'd be fine with that.
I don't want that, but again, like, I don't...
I think that's what it's going to be. I think they're going to push Cody off onto Seth, and they're going to try to make people believe that he can finish the story by beating Seth.
I think after you do the pointing at Roman at Rumble and all the hype for that, because I was driving home... Like, that's all I could think about. Because I'm going to Mania. And I'm just like, oh, my God, yes, finally, Cody's back in it. And I don't know if other people are feeling that way. If they yank that out, I'm sorry. I love The Rock. I would love to see Rock versus Roman. But I want this WrestleMania. I want the Cody thing to finish.
You don't think he finishes the story by beating Seth?
No, because
he's won the WWE title.
Well, he said several times the title that Roman has is the title he wanted.
I think what they realistically should do is have Rock win the title. Rock vacates it. That's the way you get it off of Roman. You're going to get a much better match out of Cody versus Seth in-ring-wise. You can get a 30 to 40-minute best match that WWE's put on in 10 years.
But a match is seen 3 times, 2, you know what I mean?
I guess, yeah.
Personally, I have no...
I heard they have good matches, though.
Yeah, but,
Isn't that a story nowadays? They've had good matches.
If you're an AEW fan, that's all you want.
They've had good matches. You sold WrestleMania to every AEW fan. They've had 3 good matches.
Yeah, well, give it a 4th, you know?
Right?
Last but not least, got to ask this. I'm a big fan of this show. I've been a guest maybe 10 times.
Okay.
The Ring and All Other Sports.
Leo.
With Leo Connors. Buy or sell.
Leo?
Yeah.
How much can I get for him?
Good amount.
I mean, that's how you answer that. If the price is right, Leo's going.
Yeah.
No, I love Leo. Leo's a great guy. Show's awesome. He's a great interview. He's great to talk to. I could talk to Leo all day on or off camera, but we'll keep Leo, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And Leo, I mean, that's how this show started. If I never went on that show with Leo, I don't think I ever would have even had the idea to do a show. So, but Joe, I really appreciate you coming on. It's been a blast.
It was great being here.
Remind everybody, the views of the guests reflect the guests, not Let Freedom Ring.
It's all me.
Everybody out there, have a great week. Keep your heads up. Until next time, Let Freedom Ring.